So, sehr gerne mal. Dann sind wir noch sogar am Stück. Dann werden wir mal alles überprüft. Dann gehen wir mal raus in den Gang. Haben wir ein paar Sachen gefunden und dann reden wir doch mal mit den Zweien. Da kommen wir
I'm sure the only location.
Ja, okay, gut. Dann reden wir erstmal mit ihr. Da die ja gerade vorhanden ist und hoffentlich.
I have some questions for you if you're up to answering them, Mrs. Harris.
I'll try my best, Mr. Fordham.
Entführung, zerrissener Stoff, das Baby, über sich selbst, angeschriebene Notiz, Knopf, Gespräch. Ah ja.
Tell me what you know about your son's kidnapping.
Oh, my poor baby!
Mrs. Harris, I know this is difficult, but I need as much information as you can give me so I can bring your son back.
Yes, you're right. I have to stay strong. For Charles. It happened sometime between 6 and 8 last night, I think. Both my husband and I had gone out. Charles was in the care of his nanny, Mrs. Davis. I arrived home first, around 8:30, and that's when I found this scene in the nursery, as it was.
And what was it you found?
Mrs. Davis, unconscious in her chair, the broken window, and Charles missing from his crib. Malcolm arrived home shortly afterwards, around 9, and then immediately sent our butler, Mr. Havelock, to notify the police. We stayed up waiting for any contact from the kidnappers, but there was nothing.
You said you arrived home first. Where were you last night?
Oh, I was visiting with some of my friends. We gathered at one of their homes for a concert.
I see. And your husband?
He was at the social club with his friends as well, I believe.
Wait a minute. I know this attitude all too well. This woman is hiding something. Most likely from her husband. I doubt it's voices from beyond the grave. So the question is, what's her secret?
Mrs. Davis.
What can you tell me about Mrs. Davis?
Well, she's worked for us since Charles was born, a little over 6 months ago.
How did you come to employ her?
Malcolm's mother had a friend whose daughter she used to care for. She came highly recommended. We've never had any problems with her. She's always been a dream.
Where is she now?
In her room, I would guess. With Charles missing, there's little for her to do.
Where might I find her room?
There's a small building just around the back of the manor. Hers is the 4th door from the left.
Okay. Motiv.
Can you think of any reason why your son would be a target for kidnapping?
It could be that someone wants our money, or some lunatic who's angry about the new airship. My husband's an investor, and my father-in-law owns the company building it, you see. I just don't know, Mr. Fordham. Frankly, the fact that something like this could even happen is just terrifying.
Zerrissener Stoff.
I found this bit of torn fabric by the broken window. Do you know anything about it?
No, I've never seen it before. Do you think it was left by the kidnapper?
Perhaps. Did the initials SS mean anything to you?
No, I can't think of anyone or anything I know with those initials.
Das Baby. Irgendwas ist komisch, hat er recht.
Tell me about your son.
Charles is our only child. He's such a good boy. Never makes a fuss. Always very sweet. Oh, Charles, you must be so frightened out there without your mother. Oh, please, Mr. Fordham. You have to bring him home.
I'll do my best.
Über See, Mrs. Fordham.
Tell me a bit about yourself, Mrs. Harris.
Sorry.
Mr. Fordham, my son has been kidnapped and is out there alone, terrified and confused. What could I possibly tell you that would make any difference to you finding him?
I suppose you're right, Mrs. Harris. My apologies if I upset you.
Handgeschriebene Notiz. Wir haben viel zu bereden.
I found this note in your bedroom. What can you tell me about it?
I've never seen that note before in my life.
Are you absolutely sure?
Mr. Fordham, you mentioned you valued discretion. I ask you to please exercise some now.
Would it be possible to speak about this in private? In another room, perhaps?
Out of the question, Mr. Fordham. I shall not leave this sitting room in the company of another man if my husband is not present.
Yes, I understand. Let's put the subject on hold for now.
What a life these rich people lead. All the money in the world and they're trapped like rats.
Ein Knopf.
I found this button in your son's crib. Does it look familiar at all?
No, I don't recognize it. It looks like it came from some cheap coat. Is that what the ruffian who took my baby was wearing?
That's what I'm trying to determine. That's all for now, Mrs. Harris.
Very well.
So, dann müssen wir das irgendwie hinkriegen, dass der Mann aus dem Zimmer hier verschwindet. Probieren wir uns doch mal dran.
I have some questions for you, Mr. Harris.
Yes, of course.
Oh, auf einmal. Entführung, Knopf, übrigens SSB, wird zerrissener Stoff, wütender Brief. Mal gucken, wie wir da rauskriegen.
Tell me everything you can about the kidnapping.
I don't know much. I was out last night while it happened.
Where had you been previously?
I was out with friends. My wife can verify the time I arrived home.
It seems hiding something from your spouse is an activity both Harrises partake in.
Wütender Brief.
I found this letter in your bedroom. What can you tell me about it?
You went through our things?
I'm a private investigator, Mr. Harris. It's part of my job.
Of all the insolence!
You're upset, I know, but do you want me to find your son or don't you?
Yes, of course I do. That letter was sent to me by mistake. It was written to my father. Well, if you can even call that writing.
Have I ever mentioned how much I hate rich people? Because I really hate rich people.
Your father. Doesn't he own the company building the new airship?
Yes, that's right. He's been receiving many letters just like that one since the Ligeia disaster. But that Devons fellow in particular has sent one every week, along with a bag of chicken bones and dust.
How peculiar.
Not only that, he leads a daily protest in front of the construction yard where the HMS Lenore is being built, trying to halt production.
Ah ja.
My God! How did I not see this before?
Was?
See what?
Devons! He has a grudge against this family because of what happened with the Ligeia. I'd put money on him being involved with the kidnapping somehow, as a form of retaliation.
I'll just have to speak with Mr. Devons and see for myself.
Ja. Zerrissener Stoff.
I found this bit of torn fabric by the broken window. Do you know anything about it?
Looks like it came from a piece of clothing. Possibly a jacket.
Do the initials SS mean anything to you?
Maybe? I can't really say. You'll have to excuse me, Mr. Fordham. I've got quite a lot on my mind right now. If I can think of anything, I'll be sure to let you know.
Da stimmt was nicht. Wettschein.
Mr. Harris, what can you tell me about these?
What? How did you...
Listen, I'm trying to help you and your family. I can't do it if I don't get the entire truth.
Do you think we could discuss this somewhere more private?
I suppose we could.
Good. Let's move to the nursery then.
Muss ich jetzt mit? Gut, jetzt kann ich mit dir erstmal reden.
I have some questions for you if you're up to answering them, Mrs. Harris.
Mr. Fordham, ja. So, handgeschriebene Notiz, erzähl mal.
Right. Your husband's not around to hear you, so tell me about this note.
Fine. I got that note last night from Roland.
Roland. Wer ist Roland?
Who is Roland?
Roland is a special friend.
Ah.
I see.
Oh, don't you judge me, Mr. Fordham. You have no idea what my marriage
Hab
has
ich auch
been
nicht.
like. Marrying Malcolm wasn't my idea, nor even his. The whole thing was orchestrated by our fathers. They thought merging the two families would be a good business arrangement.
Is your marriage an unhappy one then?
It wasn't easy at first, and it didn't get any easier as it went on, either.
So then, why not end it?
Mr. Fordham, we are a respectable family. There are certain considerations. Besides, I had no legal grounds. For all his faults, Malcolm is a very faithful man. Almost frustratingly so. Then, somewhat unexpectedly, we had Charles. At least that made things bearable.
I'm sorry for you, Mrs. Harris, I really am. But I think I should talk to this Roland.
Why? He has nothing to do with this.
That's for me to decide. Where can I find him?
I don't know. I've never been to his home. We usually meet at a hotel.
Can you tell me anything that would help me track him down?
Well, he's a musician. He plays the piano at some clubs in Gascon, but I don't know which for sure.
How about his last name?
I don't know that either.
Oh Mann.
I gather you don't talk much.
I refuse to answer that question, Mr. Fordham.
Du brauchst
It's a good
auch
thing
nicht.
I don't have a stomach anymore, because I can guarantee you its contents would be on the floor right now.
That's all for now, Mrs. Harris.
Very well.
Very well. Mr. Fodder, Mrs. Harris, Mr. Harris, Mr. und Mrs. Wir gehen fremd. Aber es ist höchst interessant zu sehen, dass die Ehe nicht einfach war, aber durch diese nicht einfache Ehe doch auf einmal ein kleines Mischgeschick passiert ist. Wie ist es bitte passiert? Ist ausgerutscht und dir gelandet und dann ist Charles entstanden oder forward? Okay, nice. Malcolm Harris.
Shall we continue our conversation, Mr. Harris?
Yes, of course.
Entführung.
Now that your wife is out of earshot, tell me about the kidnapping and what these betting stubs have to do with it.
Right. As I said before, it had already happened when I got home. I had just come from spending the evening at the meadows.
I see. I take it your wife isn't impressed by your hobby?
I promised her weeks ago that I would stop going, but I've had such a good streak lately. The last thing I wanted was to upset her further, yet it would be foolish of me to just give up on something so promising.
Can you think of anyone who might want to do you harm by taking your son?
Several, I'm afraid.
Go on.
I haven't exactly had the best of luck, Mr. Fordham. That's why this latest streak was so important to me. The truth is, I've gambled away most of my money. I've had to take out several loans so Miriam doesn't get suspicious. If she ever found out, it would be over. I can't lose her, Mr. Fordham. I just can't.
Where have I heard this before? You know, things would be so much easier if people just talked to each other.
I've tried doing business above board, but lately I've had to seek other resources.
What do you mean?
I was forced to visit a lending office. The owner was a rather shady Sambo, but I figured he'd be easier to deal with than the usual sheenies that run those type of places.
Can you believe this guy? Maybe we should just leave the kid be. He'd probably be better raised by wolves.
Who is the owner?
Mr. LeFay. I didn't bother to get his first name. His business is an abattoir row in Chumley. Horrid place. But I was desperate.
You think this Mr. LeFay may have taken your son as collateral?
Let's just say there isn't much those type of people wouldn't do to put a crown in their pocket.
Das Baby selbst.
Tell me about your son.
Charles is a good boy. Very quiet. Miriam had wanted a child almost from the moment we married. You know how women are when they have their hearts set on something. I saw no need to rush, but...
Nice to know you're not the only one. Hey, Miles.
The first 2 times Miriam was with child, she suffered some unfortunate accidents. She was devastated, as you can imagine. So when Charles finally came along, he turned out to be quite a blessing. I can't imagine what sort of depraved madman would take him from us like this. You must find him, Mr. Fordham.
I intend to, Mr. Harris.
Die beiden haben geheiratet aus geschäftlichen Gründen, nicht aus Liebe, normalerweise, ne? Oder aus, oh gut, okay, steuerlich hat natürlich auch einen Vorteil. War eigentlich schon ein Grund für eine Hochzeit, allein schon. Naja, aber egal. Auf jeden Fall haben sie nicht aus Liebe geheiratet, so? Ne? Okay. Und dann will sie ein Kind mit einem Mann zeugen, in die Welt setzen, den sie nicht mal liebt? Mit dem die Ehe alles andere als einfach ist? Ah ja, ist okay. Könnte es eventuell der Fall sein, dass sie das Kind hat kidnappen lassen? Weil sie von seinen Wettschulden erfahren hat und nicht mit ihm in die Insolvenz getrieben werden möchte, beziehungsweise nicht möchte, dass er ihr Vermögen auch noch auf die Kippe springt, oder einer der Gläubiger, also Kredithaie, hat seinen Sohn entführt. Naja, das finden wir ja noch raus. Über ihn selbst.
Tell me about yourself.
There isn't much to tell, really. My life has been fairly well publicized in the newspapers.
Sag's.
Let's pretend for a moment that I skip over the society pages.
Well, I'm an investor. My father Clyde runs Harris Construction Company, which I will someday inherit.
Yeah.
Any other details about me are fairly trivial nonsense, I think.
Knopf.
I found this button in your son's crib. Does it look familiar at all?
No, not at all. Do you think the kidnapper might have left it behind?
It's a distinct possibility.
HMS Lenore?
How goes the construction of the new airship?
There have been some complications, but nothing we can't handle.
Could you be a bit more specific?
Well, I already told you about the trouble with protesters at the yard, and we're blocked pending Royal Maverick's review of the safety regulations for the prototype etheric diffusion engines. Agitators and red tape aside, we should still be on schedule to have the Lenore finished and in the air by the end of the year. But really, Mr. Fordham, what the deuce does this have to do with finding Charles?
He has a point, you know.
Those are all the questions I had for now.
All right. If you don't mind, Mr. Fordham, I'm going back to the living room. I don't want Miriam getting suspicious.
Ja, alles gut. Können wir nochmal kurz reingehen? Ich würde gerne mit dem Balkon außen rum mal laufen. Garderobe.
Mr. Harris. Paperwork. An empty. One thing is for. One.
Gut. Da gab's ja nichts mehr.
Nothing.
Oh, well.
Weiterlaufen.
Nothing else hidden among the clothes. Fancy. Some poor servant's probably gonna get a flogging for leaving.
Was kriegen die Schläge?
Fancy. Some poor servant's probably gonna get a flogging for leaving it in here, though.
Achso, weil sie es drin haben stehen lassen, okay. Scheiß mal, wenn sie nicht rausschauen können.
But the Harris family certainly. I wonder if they use the bell.
Ja, ja. Dann gehen wir zum Ausgang. Viel Spaß euch zwei Süßen noch. Quartier von Mrs. Davis. Da haben wir Harrys Baugelände, Kreditbüro. Dann gehen wir mal zur Quartier von Mrs. Davis.
Come in!
Kommen Sie rein, kommen Sie rein.
Good day to you, ma'am. I'm Miles Fordham, a private investigator. I'm looking into the kidnapping of Charles Harris. Are you Mrs. Davis?
I am. Oh, bless the spirits. They've sent someone to help at last.
Aha.
Another
Order.
Harris hand-me-down, no doubt. You'd think they would have washed it first.
Aha. Kocher, Teekanne.
Seems like that boiler's the only thing in here that's less than 10 years old. My mother had a pewter teapot as well. Always made the tea taste funny.
Aha, 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 aha. Fotografie, Bild haben wir nicht. Bild, 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 Bild. Bücher, Bild, Bett. Da ist sonst nix. Kiste?
That chest is full of undressed dolls? What the hell is wrong with this old bat?
Keine Ahnung.
It's a spirit reaching out to a very frightened man. Possibly the fakest looking photo I've ever seen.
Wir klicken mal alles durch, vielleicht findet man einen Hinweis.
This looks like a mourning portrait of a young woman. Probably a relative of Mrs. Davis.
Vielleicht?
Painting of a tower on a Scottish moor. I wish I'd been able to make it over there.
Ja, ja. Hey.
Painting of a misty forest with a cemetery in the background. Cheery stuff.
Vergnügtes Bildchen, wo ein Friedhof im Hintergrund ist. Ah, ja.
Her Majesty Queen Jessica. This was clearly painted a long time ago.
I can still remember.
Pretty distinguished looking gentleman. Handsome. Good fashion sense. Wonder who he is.
Bücher.
These are all books on spiritualism and the occult. Mrs. Davis doesn't seem to have many other hobbies. The Harris family doesn't seem to hold the comfort of their servants in very high regard. I think a bed of nails would be an improvement. A boy taking a nap under a tree while his dog runs around in the distance. That brings back some good memories.
Na gut, wir reden jetzt mal mit ihr. Wir haben hier sonst nix mehr leider. Schade. Bitte halt das Zeug. Gut.
I have some questions for you, Mrs. Davis.
All right.
Yep, also gut, Mrs. Davis. Oh, die ist auch schön gepixelt worden. Entführung, Porträtkiste mit Puppen über sie selbst. Entführung.
Tell me about the kidnapping of Charles Harris.
Oh, dear. May the spirits forgive me. I feel so awful. Charlie was my responsibility, and I failed.
Mrs. Davis, that is beside the point. What's important now is finding him and bringing him home. To do that, I need your full cooperation.
Oh, you're right, Mr. Fordham. I'm sorry. I just need to collect my thoughts, get the negative vibrations out of my mind. Now, what specifically would you like to know?
Zeitpunkt der Entführung, Verdächtige. Ja, Zeitpunkt der Entführung.
What time did the kidnapping occur?
I'm not entirely sure. I know I was in the nursery having a cup of tea about 8:30. I remember feeling very drowsy. I must have passed out then because the next thing I knew, I was being woken by Mrs. Harris. That was after she got home, about 10:30. To think, whoever took Charlie did it while I was in the room. Oh, may the spirits grant me peace.
Do you happen to take any sort of sleep medications or soporifics?
Oh, dear me, no. Those types of drugs cloud the mind and make it impossible to tune into the ether.
You say that as though it were a bad thing.
I beg your pardon?
Apologies, I spoke out of turn.
Die Scheibe wurde eingeschlagen. Wie kannst du das nicht mitbekommen haben? Da stimmt was nicht. Verdächtige.
Can you think of anyone who would have wanted to take the child?
Well, I'm not one to gossip, but I am quite sensitive to the energy and vibrations that people give off. I get the impression that Mr. and Mrs. Harris aren't very happy in their marriage.
Ah, come on. Anyone could have picked up on that. Anyone except you, that is.
Mr. Harris likes to stay out late and not take his wife with him. I can't remember the last time they went out together. I don't know what he gets up to, but it's possible he may have made some enemies.
Motiv.
Can you think of any reason why someone would want to kidnap Charles?
It might have been for money, but last I heard, there was no demand for a ransom. I honestly don't know why this happened, Mr. Fordham. I just hope you find the poor child. He must be scared to death.
Okay, dann könnte es auch noch sein, dass das Kind gar nicht Mr. Harris gehört oder nicht von ihm ist, sondern von jemand anders. Und Mrs. Harris ihm nur vorenthält. Wer weiß? Zerrissener Stoff.
I found this piece of torn fabric in the nursery. Does it look familiar to you?
No, it doesn't. I'm sorry.
Knopf. Das mit dem Dings ist total komisch wegen der Scheibe, dass sie da nicht aufgewacht ist. Sie war eingeschlagen.
I found this button in the baby's crib. Do you recognize it?
Why, yes. That's one of Barney's eyes.
Barney?
Charlie's stuffed bear. It's his favorite toy, a gift from my friend Linda.
I didn't find a stuffed bear in the nursery.
Then whoever took the baby must have taken Barney as well. Oh, at least the poor thing has something to comfort him. Bless the spirits.
Okay, wer ist Linda?
Who is Linda?
Mrs. Linda Walker. She's a good friend of mine. As I said, she gave me Barney as a gift for Charlie.
Can you tell me anything else about her?
Oh, she's a lovely girl, very much in tune with her spiritual nature. I greatly enjoy my conversations with her.
When was the last time you saw her?
Oh, I don't remember. No, wait. It was at the last Spectre Society meeting on the 19th. That's right.
19. Club der Geisterkunde. Das wird immer mehr, es wird nie weniger.
What is the Spectre Society?
It's a club for spiritualists and amateur investigators of the paranormal. We meet twice a month to socialize and discuss our findings.
I see. Sounds fascinating.
Though I don't expect you to share my beliefs, Mr. Fordham.
Oh, I have a bit more experience than you'd think with regards to the spirit world.
You can say that again.
Where exactly do these meetings take place?
At a private residence in Gascon.
May I have the address?
Why, yes, it's 325 Rue Jameau. Are you going to seek spiritual guidance to find Charlie?
Perhaps. You never know what might be worth looking into.
Gut, nochmal ein Hinweis. Porträt.
That's a lovely portrait. Who is it of?
That is my late husband, Jonathan. He used to attend meetings of the Spectre Society with me, bless him. I tried to get him to be more in tune with the other side, but I think he was just humoring me. He was a good man. Everyone at the society cared for him very much.
Lindas Adresse.
Do you have Linda Walker's address?
No, I don't. I never visited her home. I get the feeling she doesn't like having visitors or being home very much. She prefers to meet people elsewhere. I was the same way after my husband died. It was embarrassing for my friends to see me living so differently. But I feel it's not just a matter of pride for dear Linda. I think there are lots of bad memories associated with where she lives. I try to stay away from places like that. They leave a mark on the soul, you know.
Also mit den Kisten mit Puppen.
I couldn't help but notice that chest full of dolls in the corner.
Oh, that. Oh, I know it must look a bit strange, but I pick up old and broken dolls so they can be repaired and donated to orphanages. It's my way of giving back to the community and helping poor children who have nothing to play with.
Well, what a kind soul. I wish she would find less creepy ways to express her altruism.
War daran schlimm und über sie selbst.
How long have you worked as a nanny?
Only a few years. I never had to work when I was married. My husband had a lot of money. Unfortunately, he was in great debt. And after the spirits took him back to the ether, I wasn't left with much. So I began working as a nanny to make ends meet. But I consider taking care of children a reward in its own right.
Thank you for your time, Mrs. Davis.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Ja, kein Problem, Mrs. Davis.